I wonder if I should ask all those married, what was your very first day as a married couple? You get all kinds of answers, I imagine. My first day as a priest. So my first partial day as a priest was the day I was ordained. And on that day, I just remember feeling all kinds of emotions. Anyone who knows me knows that I can get emotional. It doesn't take much to make me cry. And so at the ordination, I'm kind of tearing up and crying. And then the rest of that day was just a wonderful celebration. And then the next full day, again, a wonderful celebration. The most interesting thing for me as a priest was there's something I get to do as a priest that's really engaging and awesome, and that's hear confessions. And people will come to me and say things to me that they won't say to anybody else because they know that God's present. And they know that I won't say anything, and they know that it's safe. And people who an hour before my ordination wouldn't have said anything to me, an hour after my ordination were asking me if they could go to confession. It's like I'm the same person, but I wasn't the same person. Because what happens in ordination is the Holy Spirit comes into the priest in a special way. And in deacon ordination, the same thing. The Holy Spirit comes in a special way and gives us the grace and the strength to do things that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do. So it's pretty awesome. Great question.
Question for me was, when did I become a deacon? And I became a deacon in 2010. I was ordained by Bishop Kevin Rose. Many of you remember Bishop Rose. He had been transferred to Fort Wayne, Indiana, near Notre Dame, but he came back for the ordination in 2010. After about 4.5 years of preparation, I was called to do that. A very special day. I had friends too who asked me if I could hear their confession, and I said, I can hear your confession, I just can't grant absolution because I'm not a priest. That's reserved to the full office of holy orders, which is the priesthood.
There's also a question about my favorite TV show. I like HGTV. You know why I like it? Because I can just sit there and look at people buy houses, fix their houses, and I don't have to do anything, which is kind of fun. So anything on HGTV. My favorite movie, I probably shouldn't say it, but Caddyshack, but if you're younger, you'll have to ask your parents about that. Because that goes back to before I was a priest. So, but that's the one that came to mind, so I thought, well, I'll be honest. So there you go. When did you start thinking about becoming a priest? If I'm honest, I started thinking about becoming a priest probably when I was in high school. But I didn't want to be a priest. I felt like God might want me to be a priest, but I didn't want to be a priest. And eventually, if we pay attention and listen to God, God makes His will your will. So it's pretty cool. How many years have you been a priest? It'll be 31 years in the end of May. Crazy. 31 years. When I think of all the time, those of you who are married that long, you probably longer, you kind of know what that's like. And those of you who aren't there yet, you're probably like, oh my gosh, I'm at 10, I can't even think about being at 31. But 31 years. Why do you wear red today on Palm Sunday? We wear red today because red is a color that we'll wear when we talk about the Holy Spirit, but it's also a color we wear when we speak about Jesus dying, because the color of blood is red. So we'll wear red when we have a mass for a martyr, somebody, a saint that died for the faith. But this is to remind us that Jesus, as we begin Palm Sunday and begin Holy Week, that Jesus died for us. If your best friend was Jesus and you hung out every day, what would you do with him? Great question. Imagine if every day we looked at Jesus as our best friend. How awesome would that be? If every day I thought Jesus was the person I wanted to spend all my time with, I wanted to talk to all the time, that I knew I could trust, with anything. So what would I do with Jesus? Everything. And what's great is I can. Every day we can do everything with Jesus. Everything. You get up in the morning, you can make your bed, you can talk to your brother or sister, you can hang out with your parents, you can go to school, you can play baseball, you can do whatever you want with Jesus. Because he's always there. That's what's cool.
This question is for both Father and I. What do you do with your time off? And I can speak for myself with just reminding everyone that I am married. I've been married for 41 years and have a son and a new grandson, so there are responsibilities there at home with yard work and home repairs, but I also do some exercising and some relaxing as well, and watching college basketball last night, if any of you saw either of the games. I have many things to keep me busy, but daily life centers around service here to the church, and especially with daily mass and assisting Father Powell.
A deacon, there's two types of deacons. I was ordained a deacon before I was ordained a priest. So that's known as a transitional deacon. But a permanent deacon can be married as long as he's married before he's ordained a permanent deacon. So if Deacon Jubin's wife were to pass away, he would be asked not to remarry. What do I do on my day off? I like to go on hikes. If it's winter, I like to go skiing. It's summer, I like to go on longer hikes. That's probably the two main things I like to do on my day off. What is your favorite sacrament? I know I should say the Eucharist and Mass because that's the central thing of our faith, is receiving our Lord in the Eucharist, truly receiving His body. That's what we believe. But my favorite sacrament also, I would say, is confession, because it is just so awesome to see God's power at work and how wonderful people can feel when they leave confession. It can be a little scary going to confession, but it can be really wonderful when we leave. My favorite holiday, Groundhog Day. No, I'm just kidding. My favorite holiday would be probably Christmas. Easter's coming up. Easter's the resurrection. But Christmas, Jesus came into the world. And we couldn't have the resurrection without Jesus coming into the world. At 40 hours, we noticed the priests wore different clothes. Some long, some not so long, some black and white, some colorful. The priests had to choose what to wear to Mass. We are supposed to wear the same color each weekend. We can have different styles and different ways the vestments look, but the colors are supposed to be the same. At 40 hours, a priest can wear something called an owl and stole. The owl is the white thing I have on underneath, and the stole is the long piece of cloth to wear. But you can also wear a cassock and a surplice, so that would be black and white. So that's why we look like we wore different things.
Why did you want to become a deacon? And that's a question I ask myself all the time. I continue to ask myself that. But from the very beginning, from when I was in high school and even college, I felt a desire to serve the Lord in some fashion. I was blessed in so many ways, as many of us are, and the blessings were so great. I felt a sincere desire to give back in some fashion. And I did that professionally for many, many years, but then as the diaconate formation was open for men in the diocese, it felt like God was calling me to give a little more and to serve the church in a very particular way, in a very special way. And again, just by review, a deacon is called to serve the church by assisting the bishop and by assisting the pastor. Hopefully doing that now.
How old are you? I am 59 in a few months. and that means I can go into my 401ks. That's the way I'm dealing with approaching 60. I'm dealing with my 401k. I'm going to do a few here rather quickly because I have to go back over. Father Norbert has the next mass, but I need to take care of a few things. How old is God? Wonderful question. God always was. So God has no age because he always was. He was eternal. And we can't even think about that. You want an even harder question? Who created God? God always was. So how was God always? So there's a certain point when we go back. Even when people wonder, how the world was created and everything, there still needed to be something that started it all. But then what started it all? So there's a point where we just have to trust and put it in God's hands. What parish am I from? I grew up in a place called St. Raymond's in Philadelphia, and then Mother's Province in King Prussia. How do you like being a priest? It's good. If you feel God's calling you to something, a priest or a religious life of some kind, don't be afraid to think about it. Don't be afraid to talk to a priest or a deacon about it. What does it feel like to be a priest? Good. Not always, but good. Did they use the chalice? Did they use the chalice to catch Jesus' blood? Yeah, there's a tradition of that. Most likely not. Okay, but every time we place wine in a chalice and the priest says certain words, we believe that that wine becomes his blood. Okay, I answered that one. I want to know what your favorite mass is each year.
Unquestionably, what's coming up, the Easter Vigil night, when people come into the church, receive their sacraments, baptism, confirmation, first Holy Communion. I like the darkness and the light, the themes of darkness and light. Christ, the light of the world, coming into a darkened church. I think it's a beautiful and a sublime Mass, and a very special night because we welcome new brothers and sisters into the church.
And a good question for me to end on was, what is your favorite donut? Boston cream. Boston cream. Okay, I'll let you continue. But, that's all of them. Okay. Thank you. Sorry I have to run. I think you have to run as well. Okay, thank you.